It's your man Damednydc, host of the Two Mics Up podcast. And, right now, probably like many of you here in America, we're viewing uh, daily now the constant onslaught and attack of, men and women, black men and women in our community. We just had the tragic shooting of a brother in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Um, this king, Jacob Blake, was for all intents purposes, and I really don't know any other way to say it. This man it was an attempted slaughter. To shoot someone in the back. It's incomprehensible on how you can even explain to me you shoot someone in the back. You not only shoot someone in the back, you shoot someone 7 times. Listen again, 7 times in the back, according to the police. But I'm going to err on the words of his father. The family is saying he was shot 8 times. So let's just think about this for a second. You are a trained law enforcement officer. Even in the heat or the height of the moment, there is no way in hell you can expect me to reasonably believe that it takes more than one shot to slow someone down or to stop someone in their tracks. You shoot someone 8 times. 8. So when I hear that, you, one, had no concern or care for this human being's life, your intent, the word I'm using here is intent. You had intent and intended to kill this man. There's no other way around it. My mind does not fathom you were there to defuse the situation. You were there to stop an armed individual. You were there to stop someone who was armed from causing harm to the community, or that you were even in fear of your own life. I mean, how can you be in fear when you shoot someone in the back? So I'm going to just take a few minutes, because I know, like many of you, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm mad, I'm scared, especially as a man of color, here in America. We are at a crisis that at times now I'm speechless at the lack of respect we have for one human life, just treating each other as just human beings. But what's scarier is, as much as I've tried to deny it, black men and women are targets. It's not even about injustice anymore, or the inequality that's built in our system. But it's like we're targets again for abuse and rage and anger and hate. All of these things that we want to lie to ourselves about as human beings, but because of the color of someone's skin, you're a target. And that's scary. So this is not, for me at the end of the day, this is not about race, but race has to ring loud and clear at the end. Because what else is it? So let's walk through this story. Just imagine in your mind you hear a story about a human being that's showing up or involved in trying to diffuse a situation. And in the process of diffusing a situation, law enforcement is called and law enforcement arrives on the scene. The person who was diffusing the situation has 3, 4 young children in the vehicle and really thinks this has nothing to do with him or her and begins to walk away. Now, law enforcement is asking questions, but because you're asking questions, when have you become the victim or the point of the questioning, or when have you become the culprit of a crime when you walk away and say, hey, I don't want to be involved, this has nothing to do with me, and you're walking away to go to your vehicle to check on your children who are still in the car? When do you become the culprit of a phone call about something totally separate, but when law enforcement shows up on the scene, you become that target? I don't understand, how these things happen. I don't even know what motivates or drives someone to all of a sudden, instantly, when you show up, this particular person or persons or group of people become the target of questioning just because they may look different, they may dress differently, they may talk differently, they may even appear somewhat different than you. But at the end of the day, we're human beings, right? So you don't really question or ask questions. You aggressively target them. So your first instinct when you show up as law enforcement, you're already giving off an energy. There's no hey, how you doing? There's no let's kind of have calm heads and diffuse and work through a problem. It's instant aggression towards another human being who may look a little different than you or dress a little different than you. I don't understand that. So that's the first problem. The second problem I have, so let's say this person now, like I said, is saying, hey, I'm just walking away. Hey, I was just trying to diffuse a problem. This is really not, nothing for me, officer. You may want to go ahead and talk with them, and get the information that you need. And I'm going to go ahead and walk away. Why are you now, as law enforcement, hounding, threatening, intimidating someone who's not a suspect, to your knowledge, because you don't even know what's going on? You just got a phone call, and all of a sudden now, so everyone in the area becomes a target or a suspect. Makes no sense. Secondly, the individual has walked away from you in a non-threatening fashion, even if that individual says a few words that, even though you may not appreciate, but that person is walking away with their back to you. What authorizes you as law enforcement to then draw your weapon, because it wasn't a taser? You've got all these other ways to slow down or stop someone. But again, this is not a suspect. This is just somebody that just happened to be standing in the crowd that looks different from you. But what authorizes you or makes you draw your gun? Where's the threat when someone has their back to you? What's the threat? What has this human being done by turning away and walking to their vehicle that's so threatening to you? So you draw your weapon and you trace this person now. Now, I don't know about you, but if I turn my back and I see law enforcement or anyone with a gun firearm, whatever it may be, your nerves and your fear is going to kick in. So who wouldn't run to their vehicle or move towards their vehicle to get in their vehicle? But let's throw in the caveat that, so now you're being assaulted and your adrenaline is rushing because you have fear. But now let's throw in the fact that you have your children in the vehicle while all of this is going on. So now your children are watching what's going on to you as a human being, being assaulted and accosted by another human being with a firearm. Now, tell me, you know, what or how does that story sound when you hear that? How does it make you feel as a human being? It makes me scared. It makes me cringe just to think about what would I do if I was in that moment? How would I react in that moment? And more importantly, what am I going to do to protect my kids? My children who are watching this. And see, the thing about it, so these children are probably in a panic and in a fear because they're watching their father be assaulted. This is not a wrong place, wrong time. This is just a human being going about his everyday life, his everyday business, who may have happened to stop by to see a friend, an associate, whoever, and an argument breaks out or a commotion breaks out, does his best to go ahead and be a peacemaker. And when the authorities arrive, walk away. I mean, and I'm just throwing this out from what we've seen and what I've seen. I'm just sharing this story as a human being first. So now you open your door. You open your door with your back turned. What did you do in that moment that required you to be shot 7 times according to the authorities? But I'm going to go with the 8 from his family, from his dad. Because I believe that. I believe the family more than I do the authorities at this point. Because now, I mean, at this point, the time that I'm doing this recording and this podcast, it's really 3 days later. This is my therapy. It took me some time to decompress, but it took the authorities 3 days too to go ahead and actually even release their side of the story. But what causes or what? How do you even deem or justify someone who had their back turned, walking away from you, not shooting them just one time? You know, I might, if you want to slow them down, shoot them in the leg, shoot them in the arm. You had tasers, you had a baton, but no, you had a drawn firearm and you shot this man 8 times in the back. Now I'm just going to let that sit there for a minute. Play that back in your mind, listeners. What is the number 1 sound like versus the number 8? It's a big disparity. It's a huge disparity. And just play back in your mind, if this was you, a human being, basically being tracked and murdered like you were out hunting an animal. Because that's the vision that I got. And again, I'm talking about human beings. This has nothing to do with color. This is a story about a human being. Because this is a man that has a family, had a responsibility to his family, and those that he loved and he cared for. Now, this man will never have that again. In the sense of what he was. You know, Lord willing, you know, if he survives this, you know, right now we're talking about him being paralyzed. But he's not going to be the same man that he was. And that was all taken away by another human being. unjustifiable assault and attempted murder in broad daylight. And this is becoming the norm here in our country, and that fact has truly become so scary to me because, you know, we're at a time where the protesting it's needed, it's worked to a degree, but now, the news, the media, our government has begun stringing along false tales and trying to construe the meaning of these protests and these positive rallies. You know, we had the other night in D.C. watching on the news, there was a Black Lives Matter rally uh, in D.C., but they showed a group of mostly white individuals. From everyone that I can see that was in the still photos and in the pictures and in the video, were all white. But somehow it was tagged as a Black Lives Matter movement, and they tagged it as these people were walking around town assaulting people who were having dinner on the sidewalks. And because they were saying, screaming, white silence is white violence, they made that a Black Lives Matters issue. But there was no black people. I didn't see anybody with any Black Lives Matter gear on, paraphernalia. I didn't see any Black Lives people out front shouting. But because there was an event being held by a young woman downtown that was a Black Lives Matter event, we don't even know if that was an authorized Black Lives Matter event. But the point behind it is, because there was a so-called event associated with that, these people, this group of people, which were white, were associated with that, and they were assaulting people having dinner on the sidewalk, downtown D.C. And here we are again being labeled as dissidents, problems, and issues like we're almost. I mean, I hate to say this, but it's almost like like you're Al Qaeda or something like that. Like you're a terrorist group, but all we're doing is asking for change. All we're doing is asking for equality. All we're asking for is to stop the senseless slaughter of Black Americans, brown Americans here in this country. We look at Portland. You got militia running around snatching people off the street. These people are, and a lot of them come to find out, or as we're finding, our former law enforcement, our law enforcement, being given orders by current law enforcement to target certain people and snatch them off the street. That's crazy. I mean, how can that even be? How can that even take place here in America today, this time, this century? And for those of us humans here thinking that this is impossible, well, the impossible is happening right before our eyes. After this brother Jacob's attempted assassination is what you might as well call it. We have a young white man running around downtown, 17 years old, with a long-eared rifle. He went down there with his mother. His mother drove him there, based on information to go from a place where he lived to downtown to where the shooting took place. He didn't even live there. But they were giving word out as a militia to go protect this area. They were given orders, and there's video, many of you have probably seen it, there's video showing officers and authorized officers from this area giving orders. We're going to drive them to where you are, and you handle it, and we'll back off and we'll walk away. And this young man goes down there and shoots and kills 2 people. Another man loses his arm. And you just watch the video. You can hear people yelling, this guy, he's out here, he's the one shooting everybody down the block. He's got his rifle dangling hands in the air, but the police drive right by him. They ride right by him. And yet he even walks with his hands up and walks up to a police cruiser. And you can hear the officer basically tell him, back up, back away from the car. But let's just put this in context. And let's just be honest. You have to ask yourself the honest question. If that was a young black man with a long-nosed rifle walking down the street with his hands up, first of all, wouldn't it took but 30 seconds? Not even 30 seconds. It would have took 3 seconds for them to put a hole in his head. And let's just be honest. That is the state of America that we're living in. So all that tells me is that we, as human beings, have made the decision to choose. Because some of us are in power or have control, we've made the decision to choose and automatically identify anyone who looks different than me. They're the enemy. They're the target. And we're going to go ahead and shoot first. And we really won't ask questions. Because what's the motto? I had a friend who was a police officer that said to me, he said, you know what, Dame? I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And I'll be damned if I give anyone the opportunity to judge me. And this was someone that I knew that was in law enforcement. So there's a huge disconnect as human beings when we can go ahead and sit and say things of that nature. So your intent is, I get it, fight or flight. I want to get home to my family. But that really means that you're not equipped to be in these environments that you're in as a human being, because you're already coming in with a pre-notion that anyone that looks different than me because of your skin color, you have the authority to go ahead and assassinate, kill, murder, hurt, maim, and walk away. It's a problem. It's an issue. And like I said, the protests and all this here, everything is great. It's needed. But now, after saying this, we really need a united plan of action. There's no way around it. And when I say united plan, we're watching the NBA, the WNBA, baseball, these other sporting events. They're postponing and talking about canceling the season. We need more than just our athletes. We need our corporations. We need our owners. We need the owners of these teams. We need these owners and their sponsorship partners to take a stand. Because at the end of the day, this government will not do anything or move to push the needle unless there's money involved. And unfortunately, as human beings, when we're in this situation today, the black and brown humans do not have the same. We do not have the same equity. We don't have the same value. We don't own the same things as our white counterparts. And that's been the case in America for a long time. But if we want this to change, we need our owners of these businesses, these multi-million and billion-dollar corporations, to really make a stand, make a choice, get on board, because we need that to help drive and change this situation and move the needle. Because in my heart right now, like I said, the protesting, we've got so much going on and so many different things hiding behind the guise of these good meaning and good intentions of these protests. We have so much stuff now going on behind that, where it's being set up and conspired by other human beings who don't agree with a certain group or groups of other human beings that look different than them. We need corporations. We need financial support. And when I say it doesn't have to be to these black and brown communities. It would be nice, but we need support in your economic dollar pushing the needle or pushing our government to have to really recognize this is just bigger. This is bigger than race. It really is, in my opinion. This is not a race issue anymore. This is a human being issue. We're tearing each other up based on the color of skin. Something that you want to sit here and say that you believe in God. You know, Americans believe in God and country. Well, we're all Americans, aren't we? Those of us here that we believe in God, don't we? So why am I killing another human being, another American? You know, when we sit and we talk, so many of our white counterparts find out that they have black in their family or they have brown in their family. It's nothing new. I mean, this is science. This is your science. If we're going to talk about it, I mean, you are the negative gene. But that's a whole nother conversation. I'm talking about human beings here. So I'm just having a hard time that the whole symbolism, what we talk about, the whole rhetoric, does not match our actions. And the only time that they really matched, if you think about it, was when there was an attack here, 9/11. It's the first time in a long time in my life that I can remember black and white, black and brown, brown and black, all lived in peaceful harmony. But it was sad when you think about it, though, because it was an attack by an attacker that we were really supporting and paying for it. And again, a whole nother story. And when I sit and I think about Americans, as an American, we all want the same thing, don't we? We want to be able to go ahead and live in a decent home, earn a fair wage for the work that we do. We'd like to be able to have our kids experience the best schools possible and have our schools to be safe and secure from any harm or any danger. We want to be able to go ahead and afford a nice car, be able to afford to have our lights and our utilities on. And these are the simple human pleasures. So where in that is the color of someone's skin? I'll wait. Because I thought that was what the American dream was all about. That dream doesn't have any color, doesn't show anyone's skin color or their heritage or where they're from. But this is the rhetoric that I'm told that as an American I'm afforded to, or I should be striving to work towards. But yet, I have to worry about walking outside my home and being assaulted, accosted, or even killed by another human being that may look a little different than me based on the color of my skin. Sad. Extremely sad. So like I said, time to really reach out. I would say anyone that knows any business owners or anybody of influence in our community, and any large corporations, multi-million dollar corporations that are willing to sit down and have a conversation. I think the time is now to have that, and how can we financially impact, our government. And I know this is another uncomfortable conversation because business here, we're talking about capitalism here. This is what America's all about. What I know and what you don't know helps make me more than what you'll ever make. And we have some businesses and business owners, that are doing extremely well. You look at Amazon, just throw that out there. But this is a person or an organization that has influence on a dollar level or a monetary level that many of us will never understand. But the government will understand that influence, that power, if they make a financial commitment or a financial stand to assisting the injustices that man is committing to man here in America. So, I just wanted to take some time out today with you all and just kind of share my thoughts, my feelings. This was extremely therapeutic for me. And, you know, many of you may feel the same way. I know some of you are probably a lot angrier than I am. Uh, and your emotions probably are running a lot rawer than mine. And I get that. But I'm going to ask you, brothers and sisters, to be smart. Be really smart about how you move, where you're going, how are you moving. Make sure that you um, have some type of support system in your group as you move along. Make sure you're on the phone with someone. Make sure that you're talking and communicating so people know your every move and where you're going. Because it's going to be critical right now. Things out here, right? It's hella hard out here right now. Like, I'm just going to be honest. Like, let's call it what it is. So, communicate. Let people know where you are, what your status is, and just stay safe. Be smart out there. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and sign off like I normally would. Unfortunately, this one here was just my rant. But as always, stay safe, stay blessed. Mike's out.